All right, I think we should be ready to rock and roll. Equipment, I don't like it. That's not true. I like equipment. Hello, fellow Sublime Text Fanatics. OdatNurd here. Welcome to tonight's live stream, the last one of March. I'm torn between thinking that the stream shouldn't go as long as it normally does because I have a lot of housekeeping of a digital nature to do for some stuff that's happening tomorrow, and wanting to go all night and into tomorrow because April Fool's Day is sometimes a bad day to be on the internet. But what are you going to do? Push F12, I suppose. So here's the deal. The plan tonight is to work on some hyperhelp author type action. And to be honest, I had a very busy week doing all sorts of things of a video recording and video editing nature, which includes things like discovering that apparently the mini port, the mini display port, mini port, the external adapter connector, holy jiggy, on my laptop. Maybe on the way out, because while I was doing some video editing, it kept deciding that it wasn't connected. And then after that, that problem went away. It decided it was connected, but no signal was going across. That's not really the sort of thing you want to have happen, especially when the emergency backup is to use HDMI, which only one of the three monitors on my desks currently supports because the HDMIs are being used by other machines. And it's the monitor that has the most stuff around it and is the most precariously placed with regards to having to have everything on the desk move. And it's impossible to plug an HDMI cable in blind in the middle of a bunch of other cabling. It was not fun. It ended up working though. In any case, as I said, we do have some ideas of things to work on for tonight, and we are focusing on HyperHelp Author, the authoring tools for HyperHelp. If you've followed my live streams, you've probably seen those, us working on it before, in particular the linter type action. Um, so these are the sort of the five things that I've come up with as things that we could sort of work on. And the first one of these is the one I want to work on first. And as you can see, I was such in. Well, I don't even need to do that. I'm well off the rails here. I was in such a hurry to get this stuff all settled away that I didn't actually type out any of the normal description text that I would put on these things to explain what they're doing. Um, well, before that, actually, I think we need to try something else out here first. Okay, well, let's go about this in this way. I can't remember if I welcomed you to the stream. I'm pretty sure I did. We're working on HyperHelp Author. I'm pretty sure I said that. Subscribe to the channel for live streams, blah, blah, blah. I have another channel. Look down in the thing below. I make videos there. Subscribe, yada, yada. Good news, if you are watching this live stream right now live, you are hearing this now. A video is going live on the channel tomorrow to coincide with my telling people that Snappy exists officially. So people other than us are going to be able to know that this package exists. And sorry, I'm getting weird overlays on my ob screen. That's making me think that things are all weird. But the stream seems to be doing what I would expect it to do. So good. So I'm going to be doing I would say a release tomorrow, but I'm not really doing a release tomorrow of these packages. They're just going to be mentioned in the forum for people to look at. There's going to be a video that talks about Snappy and how to use it. So that's pretty exciting. Nobody else knows about that. It's going to be an April 1st thing. No one's going to believe it. It's going to be great. That's my way of shielding myself in case people decide that this package isn't very good. And while I was making those videos, I needed to create a video not only for Snappy, but for HyperHelp and also for HyperHelp Author. And lo and behold, I discovered a bug. Well, I didn't really discover the bug so much as I knew the problem was there because it was on my to-do list, but I just never authored help on Windows. And the issue there is that HyperHelp Author needs to, for open files, determine where those might exist in packages. That's so that it knows to reload what file what package the help is related to and stuff. There's two problems with that. One is Windows uses a different path separator than Linux does, so various things went horribly awry in that case. And also, the authoring tools were originally authored back when one package, one help index was the rule, and now the rule is there can be as many indexes as you want as long as they all have different document roots. So a lot of things incorrectly infer what package a file is related to by using the actual package part of its package name instead of looking up its path. So we need to fix those two things. Should we have that done in no time, we can go on to opening help from packaged files because right now I'm not entirely sure. I think loading a help file like this might actually work. I'm not 100% sure because I can't remember if I'm actually doing an open file or not. If I am, it might need more work to come out of a packaged file instead of a regular file. And even if it does open, it's certainly going to have problems trying to save the file because if it opens from a package, it'll be read-only. So we need to add extra stuff to do what package resource viewer does, and in that case, make sure that we can create the appropriate directory and save the file and make it non-read only and stuff like that. Other things I discovered, and maybe we might even skip down to these. One of the things that the lint doesn't warn you about is that if you have a help file that's not linked anywhere in the table of contents, and an extension of that, which may or may not be related, is telling you when a help file isn't linked anywhere because part of last week's run up to stuff or the week before, as I can't remember now. It's been a blur of activity. I guess the week before, because this last week I've been doing a lot of video editing and proofing and re-editing and things like that, is that it's all well and good when you're working on your help to have your help files like colors and customization and example and all of this stuff. But if you forget to create a link to it, no one will ever see it, especially if it's not in the table of contents. So I think some sort of warning to tell you that not necessarily that the file itself isn't linked, but maybe do some sort of check where you have a list of all of the help files, and every time you validate a link to a help file, you add that help file to a set, and at the end, if there's any things in one that aren't in the other, we know that file isn't linked anywhere from any file. That help file is just orphaned per se. I mean, it might not be if it's linked in the table of contents. I want that to be a warning and not an error because it is entirely possible you might have help that's not linked if it was like context sensitive. For example, if you were a package author and you wanted to say, like in my override package report, I want to be able to display some very specific help when you press this key, but it's not something you need to see in the general course of things. Um, so we want that. And also, and this is, I don't know how super exciting that is, except I would find it useful from time to time because I don't have a keyboard shortcut set up to pinging that to pull the lint panel open. But the same way that find in files can shoot stuff into a buffer, it'd be nice if the lint output could do the same thing. I'm not sure how I mean, I know how it's easy to do that if I just if I say window.new file instead of window.create output panel, that'll work. But I'm not sure how the find in files handles the case where, because you can double click on things in the lint panel and get it to jump to the appropriate locale. So there's that. But there is something else here to note, and this is going to be one of those, what I'd like to say, watch this moments, because something's probably going to go terrible. I'm on dev channel build 3202 here, as you can see. I'm going to quit. Something I've been working on recently is this new script st-tool. If you watched previous live streams way back when, I had an st3 deploy sandbox script where you could provide it a build number and it would untar that. I've enhanced this to the nth degree. So if I do this, I can see that the latest stable version is 3200 and the latest dev version is 3203, which is not the version I have. I have 3202. So if I ran it without arguments, we can see there are various operations you can provide. You can get it to create a sandbox, which is the default operation. You have to specify a build number. And you can also see what the latest version is and do what I'm calling an install, which is the thing that I'm going to do here. So we're going to see how well this works. If I st-tool and say I want to install build 3203, here's what should happen. I don't have this build locally. As a matter of fact, let's test that first. If I said check for build 3203, oh, it does think I have it, huh? Maybe I downloaded it but didn't install it. Oh, well, that's a bummer. Anyway, I want to install build 3203. It doesn't like that, huh? What did I bring? Oh, I forgot the -b. I'm not really a super fan of that argument structure, but it's written as a bash script, so. Now it's deployed the sandbox, extracting, bloop, bloop. Okay, let's see how well that worked. Hey, look at that. 27th of March. Oh. Further improvements. Yeah, all right. We better quit and restart because it told me to. I always do what I'm told. So basically what this was doing is it can do the sandbox as it always could before, which is the default. Sandbox is a certain build with the directory with a name. And if you specify -n, it doesn't put the data directory inside of it. So that's what this was doing. But because I used install, it put it in the directory where I normally install things. And then the last thing it did was swap the symlink because, as I believe I may have showed previous, if I did this, I have a redonkulous number of, oh, I got a spare file there even, a redonkulous number of builds here, and for any particular one, I just symlink Sublime Text 3 to the one I want to work with. That allows me to very easily swivel swabble through versions. Well, I mean, it's easy now because if you tell it to install like this, um, it'll just automatically flip the link to the one that it needs if that folder doesn't already exist. But previously, I used to have to do that manually. Okay, so that's cool. Now we're on the latest and greatest of this. And one of the reasons that I might have to call the stream early, unless I get caught in some really exciting type action here, is that I still have a little bit of work to do. I want to push out one last release of Snappy tonight before the forum announcement tomorrow because I noticed some stuff, like for example, uh, the bottom of this help says API help copyright Sublime HQ Pty Limited because I do not have the copyright on the help. As a matter of fact, I mentioned this a ways back in the Discord, and Will seemed to think that they had the copyright, but if we were just using it to show to people, John was unlikely to care. The thought occurred while I was walking this morning that I should probably ask, but I can always make the package, the repository private. But in any case, if we looked at, for example, Sublime Build, it also says API help because I just utilized that. I don't think this should say API help. It should maybe say build help. I think it should say Sublime Text help copyright block and then all of them. So I'm going to need to change that. As we can see, there's also a change in this because I boned up find replace ways back. So there's that as well. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, as I pointed out, now that we're in, the first thing we want to work on is commands need to use local path separators. And I did create sort of a fix for this just to be able to create the video I was working on. But it is by no means, oh, stop doing that. There we go. I want to look at this one for right now. And another thing that I didn't even put in there is there could be a lot of cleanup type stuff happening in this thing. Let's look here first. I'll zoom that out. Hyperhelp setting is authoring. Package for view, local help file name. Determine what the full file name of a help file from a given package would be if it was stored locally. This is something that I want to check. And to do this, to create some stuff, just to see, there is, if you remember, if you follow the forum for Sublime Text, oh, hang on a second there. If you follow the forum for Sublime Text, I'm going to turn a fan on here because it's a little warm in here right now. Actually, maybe I could actually open the window a little bit. We'll hang on that for a second. If you watch Sublime, when Sublime Text 3200 was released, the official Sublime Text 3.2, Sublime REPL was broken. And specifically, certain aspects of it didn't work and other parts did work. I looked into that a little bit for John in the, because I kept seeing people asking it all over the forum and on Stack Overflow and on Reddit even. And the ultimate determination that I made was that John says that there was regression in the API. I don't think so. I think it finally started enforcing something. And hang on a second. I got something going on another desktop here, and it was complaining about stuff. There was the all package resources should always be in this format. That is, with the forward path separator as what I would call POSIX paths, the paths that are native on Linux and the paths that are native on Mac OS. And even on Windows, this is how package resources are supposed to work. However, Sublime REPL does something very similar to this. It joins packages path with parts of a file, and the result of doing that was a file name that's sort of local. Well, sorry, in this particular, it's not doing this specifically. This is something I want to check, but it would take the file name of a path, throw off, the part that wasn't the packages path to just get, packages slash user slash something, and then try to use that as a resource to use sublime.load resource. And that fails in spectacular fashion because it has the wrong path separators. Previous builds of Sublime Text that would apparently work, and the most recent builds, they've put it back that way. But for that one build, it was broken. And it was broken because of Sublime REPL was doing something wrong, but it just so happened that the system was masking the error. And I want to make sure I'm not doing anything like that in anywhere in here where I'm working on stuff. From help core.core import help index list. That's a thing I can do, right? And then I can say x equals help index list for, let's say, my user package, because that's one that's definitely going to be everywhere. And if I run that command and type x, I get a whole crap ton of stuff, right? So if I said x.docroot like this, but it's not a method, I see user help. So if I also import os.path, just os, and say os path join sublime.packages path, which is going to be something in a POSIX path, with x.docroot and index.txt, I end up with a file name that looks like that. Okay. Now, and this is where things get quote unquote interesting. This is a Chrome remote desktop for a very slow but usable HP stream that I have actually sitting to the desk on my right. It's not nearly powerful enough to be able to live stream anything, even if that was a good idea. Now, I suppose what I should do is copy this because Snappy should be and HyperHelp Core should be installed on that. Oh crap! There we go. Let's put that over there for a second. I might have to do this just for now. Now that we know that that window is there, because I need to be able to interact with it. Normally, I hide windows that I'm not going to fiddle around with, so that they don't clutter things up. I don't think I can roll this up, can I? No. So in this, if I ran that code, and it's kind of irritating that it's going to keep telling me that, I might have to actually make this window not be maximized so that I can, whoops, do that. If that's going to constantly display there, which I believe is a security issue. You know what? It's really hard to do that using the mouse that's attached to or that on this Linux machine. So I'm just going to turn around and grab it with the real mouse. It's easier that way. Okay, so I pasted that in. So I could now again say x.docroot. And what we're going to see is still that kind of path. So that's good. So if I said os path join, and I'm thinking this is where it's going to go wrong. Sublime.packages path x.docroot and index.text. Oh, if I imported OS first and then did that. See, I end up with this bizarre, the path isn't as it should be, so to say. Now, this is the magic of, we actually want 3.3 for this, I would imagine. Because I think there's something in here that we could use to fix a path, norm path. Yeah, I think that's the one I'm looking for. Normalize a path name by collapsing redundant separators and up references. Say because the string manipulation may change the meaning of a path that contains symbolic links. It converts forward slashes to backward slashes to normalize case use norm case. All right, so that might be something cool for us to do here. Oh, I did that wrong, didn't I? I need the path in there. I got my mind on all the stuff that I need to be doing later on. That seems to have resolved that. So we could say, if I also tested such thing here, where's the thing I just did? For the love of Pete, man. OS path, norm path. That still works the same. So if we wanted to know what the full file name of a help file from a given package would be if it was stored locally, this should actually be OS path, norm path. Although that does beg the question that we need to make sure that anywhere that this is invoked is actually something that works and could handle such a path. Open local help, attempt to open. Okay, now we get the local file name and we say window.open file. So it's conceivable that this might actually have been broken in build 3200 on Windows, because unless this doesn't have the same path type handling. But I expect the local path to work, so I think that call should be okay. And if we wanted to open an index, I think we need to do the same thing here. The index file is stored as a reference file spec, so strip the prefix. This might actually be wrong. Join the packages path with the index file. Okay, let's check what index file returns. It gives you a whole thing inside of packages. So okay, I'm imagining if I stick this on, that is the magic of the string slice that throws the packages part off. Yeah. So that I think should work, but we still want to say os.path.norm path on it. And space that out. The idea there being this doing what this thing we just looked at was doing was figuring out what path. Oh, did I have that on multiple lines here? I did. Let's do that here too, since we're doing it there. Looks a little nicer, perhaps. This is figuring out the help for a local file, the local file name for a help file by taking the packages path, adding the document root, and adding the help file, and then normalizing the path because at the very least, the package info doc root's always going to be in Sublime resource format and not local path, and we want to make sure that that's just consistent. For some reason, I decided that I didn't need to do that for indexes, but it really seems like it probably would have been a good idea, so I might actually just boost that up. But we want to do the same thing there, only here, the index file includes the packages thing here, which is just to make it easier to reload the index. You can just use that to do the thing. Just checking YouTube telling me that I'm currently live, so that's handy. So we have to throw that packages part off because this is going to include it. And if it doesn't exist, help index doesn't exist. Otherwise, it says open the file. Now, I think this is where that open help from packaged files is. It actually tests to see if a local file exists. So yeah, that's not going to work for the same reason. That's not going to work either. But at least I put in a setting to indicate that that was the case. All right, here's what we're going to do here because it's going to bother me. Whoa. To def local help index package info. I don't think we even need just return that. Determine what the full file name of a help index file of the help index file for the given package would be if it was stored locally. And then reflow those, add a period because we're a stickler, remove an extra line, copy that, come on down here, and local path is such. That probably still works. Then it complains and apply authoring settings. So just to test all that business, package reloaded, so that's good. If I said, no, I guess I should probably verify where these things are actually called, right? Open local help referenced in 230 when you say edit help, which is what I would have expected. So we can do that there. And open help index is coming from 390, which does the same thing. So that means if I said edit this help file, that's where that code comes from. And it looks like it opened it. And if I said edit this help index, it would also open that. So it looks like that still works. Just because I don't think I've ever actually mentioned this previously anywhere, as a matter of fact, it occurs to me. I also edited I just finished editing and uploading the final version of the HyperHelp authoring tools walkthrough video for people who want to create help. that video is not going to come out tomorrow. That video is going to come out in a couple of weeks. I'm doing a 3-week rolling thing so that I can use these next weeks to create more videos and get myself a little ahead of the curve. But you'll notice here, if I went up to Tools and said HyperHelp Author, oops, that's override audit. Edit help index ... When I pick it, it automatically opens the index for Sublime build because that's the help file that's open right here. If I did it over here instead in this window and said HyperHelp Author, edit help index, it asks me for a help package first, and then it does it. Similarly, if I was over here and I said Tools, HyperHelp Author, edit help file, it's showing me the files inside of this build package for the file I want to edit. Like say I typed index.txt and got to open the index for the build system. Over here in this window, if I say Tools, HyperHelp Author, edit help file, it asks me what package I want to do something in, say color scheme. And then it asks me what file I want to do something with, say index, and it opens that one. And it should be fairly obvious. The thing that's making that happen is that this window has a help package open in the help view. And so it automatically infers if you want to edit a help index, you want to edit the help index for the help you're currently looking at. And if you want to edit a help file, you can do so by, you probably want to do one in the current package. Another thing, it probably works if I said HyperHelp Author, add help file to package. It has to ask me for a package there too. So anything that requires a package argument, these commands infer the one that's in use in the current help package if there is one. And similarly, while I'm here, I'm going to edit this help file because I don't like these characters. They are the characters that are actually in the, actually I should copy that one first and then do that. Those are the characters that are actually in the, have any more of them? One more. Oh, that's in the actual help file I'm looking at right now, I would imagine. Yeah, I can fix that by reloading the file. Those are the files. Keep getting distracted by while I'm talking. Those characters are actually what's used in the help file, so that's why I put them here in this. But in some fonts, that character is a different width than other characters, and it was disturbing my delicate sensibilities because the build systems have tables in them. So anyway, getting back to what I was saying before I got horribly distracted by that, any HyperHelp Author command that requires a package will infer the one from the current help view, and anything that requires a file, well, most things that infer a file automatically just use the one that's in the help view, except for the one where you want to edit a help file. It probably doesn't, you want to, worry about that if you pick it that way versus this way. So that's the code in common, probably fixed up for what we have in here, including having a new thing. This is the thing that's, sets the appropriate author settings in, which is something that I'm pondering. Maybe this needs to be backwards instead of forwards. Right now, HyperHelp Author has its own custom specific syntax specific settings for help files to ensure that they display like this: no rulers, fold only on hover, other instances of the same word aren't immediately highlighted like they are here, because all that gets in the way of looking at the help. So that's what the default is when they pop here, and when you pick edit, it applies the settings that you told it to apply for authoring instead. What it could actually do instead, now that I'm thinking about it more, is make you specify settings that you want to have edit for edits inside your own stuff, and it could actually, when it displays the help, go out of its way to remove those settings. I'm not sure how deep a code change that would be, which is why I haven't done it up till now. I don't want to rewrite the core again, at least not right away, because I just finished one. So we don't care about that. Now let's look at events, see what's in here. Before we're going to save, apply the author settings. I wonder why it does. Huh. Oh, I see. That's this one up here. Excuse me. I thought it was that other one. Applies a setting that says that this is the hyperhelp authoring type thing. This view has the setting that indicates this is an authoring view that was just opened or created. Remove the setting and apply the authoring settings to it. Yeah, so on load we do that so that we can do magic stuffs, because otherwise there's no good way to do that. So on load, if the view is a help file that's marked as being opened by the authoring tool, the authoring tool does that on its own to make those settings go. That's another reason why that's terrible, so to say, is a potential code change, especially this close to having someone who's not me look at the thing. Okay, so that's events. We already did something in common, so we really got to look at this giant pile of stuff. Look this out. The code in help-index.py, which is actually in the hyperhelp core, uses POSIX path as the path module instead of OS path, because in packages all files are POSIX. There's probably going to be interplay with that in this code in an unfortunate way, since it needs to work with local files and match them to resources. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, boy howdy, did that happen. So this is the one that did something funky, right? Let's see what happens if I do this. Oh, right, sorry. It's not POSIX path.path. POSIX path is the replacement of os.path. Or if you will, there's a POSIX path and NT path and maybe another one, and the underlying OS module substitutes the appropriate one for OS path when it starts up. That still seems to do dumb stuff. It's actually dumber than it was before because of that. So we'll see what we think about that per se. Let's go back to here. So let's maybe go through a help header focusing on the date field, because we do need to be able to update a header. And this might actually be something that could be done smarter now, because help files have a very specific scope, I think. Edit this help file and see. I don't know that the key and value, text hyperhelp help, it doesn't have a meta line. All right, so that's something that could happen, but it doesn't right now. If there was an official scope on the contents of the date key, this wouldn't have to try and reparse the thing, which is probably something that's going to cause a problem. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in hyperhelp author. All this code was originally written back in December of 2017 as my Devember project, when I rewrote hyperhelp from the ground up as part of my Devember project that year, because I decided it was one of those things where I started the package as just being for override audit and had just the features I needed for that. And then as I worked on it more and realized I could use it for more stuff, it expanded to a point where I was really fighting against my initial design to make things work. So I spent that November project rewriting the code in the project to work the way that, to make all of those changes easier, if you will, the new logical core. This is an important rule to take away if you're a software developer or if you're new to software development. It's not unheard of to throw a whole code base away and start fresh. Certainly, it's not something you want to do lightly because programming is a lot of work, and if you don't have to do something like that, then you shouldn't do something like that. But what I had was a real hodgepodge of stuff. Like, literally there were two different ways to create anchors because I was trying to make it look the way Vim help works, and there was, it couldn't link to things outside of the current file originally, and then that sort of started to be something that needed to have happening, and I kept adding on to the design, and it became clear that I was sort of fighting against what I had originally designed it to work for, to do designed it to do the stuff I wanted. So it really was a good idea to just restart it in this case. Don't be afraid to do that, but also, don't spend every Monday restarting all of your projects. You really need to give a lot of thought to how you want your project to work when you start to make sure that this sort of thing doesn't happen. And in my defense, I didn't really, much like Override Audit itself, all my package development is things that I myself want to use. And if there is something that already exists on package control, then all the good for that. That's why I never wrote, anything like package resource viewer. Although there are plans to add functionality like that to Override Audit just to round it out its functionality for working with overrides. Might as well create them as well as being able to find them and clean them up. But if there isn't something like that, I am in the unique position as a software developer to just create my own. So that's why I created Override Audit, and that's why I created the help system. And thank Keith Hall, who's known as King Keith on Stack Overflow and the Sublime Forum and the Discord. Actually, on Discord, I think he's just known as Keith, if I had to guess. We refer to him as Your Royal Highness. For convincing me that people other than me might find it useful, which might have just been him, but nevertheless. So things change. Let's go through this. This might be the best part of this stream, is just me reacquainting myself with how this thing was supposed to work. Yield a list of packages Sublime currently knows about, those that have at least one resource and are not ignored, optionally filtering away packages that have help indexes defined currently. The list is yielded in package load order. Okay, now this is the thing where if I was to say add help to package, it shows me a list of all packages that exist that don't already have a help package. That's why user doesn't appear in here, because I have one. Now, I'm getting some weird scratchiness here. Hang on a second. My apologies. I'm not sure if that's coming through the headset or not, but part of my bump, I think I moved the boom. But I'm hearing a weird scratching as the headset cable rubs on my shirt. So this is the thing that's doing that, and it's doing it by finding all of the resources. Find every possible resource, and if it starts with packages, split the package name off. Now, we have seen in other streams that the contents of the cache folder pop up here too, which is why it does that. Once it's done, it finds a list of all of the packages that exist in help index list and removes those out. And what you end up with is a list of all packages. And then this is an iterator. Um, if you want to actually filter, I should say that it doesn't have to do that, but you almost always want to for this stuff, I think. Um, if default is in the set, it should come out first because default is always the first package, and if user is in there, it should come out last. Otherwise, it pulls out items that are sorted but don't have those two packages in them. This is so that it yields the packages in the same order that Sublime would load them. Now, normally we would say possibly a problem here because there's not a real correlation between the actual physical package and the package that the help is stored in. For example, Snappy itself has three different indexes, one for API help, one for build help, and one for color scheme help. All of them still appear in the package Snappy. So it would actually be interesting to see. Oops, that's not the key I meant to press. Snappy shows up in this list because it doesn't have. It's a package that exists, but it doesn't have um, an index associated with it. Technically, that's not a problem. There could actually be a Snappy help system that tells you how to use the Snappy help package. So that's cool. Um, it could theoretically be a problem, but since the general use case is that someone with a package would add help to that package, as opposed to what Snappy is doing, having multiple packages built in that are logical packages that don't match the physical package. I think this is, in fact, redacting the things that we want it to. Now, this is something that could be very heavily repaired. This is the sample index that gets generated when you create a new empty index. It should really pull this out of a resource instead of doing this, but this was most expedient at the time. I believe I spent a lot of time realizing you got to double up these braces because the otherwise, they're considered special. Writes it as UTF-8. Make root help does the same thing for an index file. It writes out a stub root help file, boop, boop, with the appropriate, just something in it. So this command is for updating the header command. Let's see, it gets the current date in the format that we need for the header, and then it checks line 0 and parses it. That could actually be something that happens inside of Snappy. Maybe we don't even need to do this. Sorry, inside of the core. I'm not sure if that's actually exposed as part of the API. Let's investigate that. I do, like I said, I do have these lists of things that we want to do, but I didn't go over any of them. I didn't in my walk this morning. I didn't try to plan out what I was going to do because I'm really just not familiar enough with this code to really make any sort of determination. So the one thing I knew I needed to fix is the path thing, which when we get to that command, I'll fix it there because this package as it currently exists, unless I committed that change after I ran into problems. Um, Got to keep doing that so that I can see stuff happening. I should, just for temporary's sake, I'm going to bring this window back over to this zone so it's not here because the Chrome Remote Desktop wants to keep timing it out. And it's a pain in the butt to get it to connect again because I'm using a different account than I would normally be using for something like that. Um, but I ran into a bug with the HyperHelp author while I was doing the video and patched it so that I could continue recording. But I don't know if I actually pushed it anywhere. So if we looked at let's close up Snappy and open the core. And I'm not actually sure where exactly this might be. Not open local help. Show help topic. If we found show help topic, it looks up the topic, opens new tab if it needs to. Oh, wait. Attempt to display the help in the given package. Transparently create the help view. So existing view is true, a find help view is none. Then we call this. So if we call display help file, it calls this. Oh, actually, we probably didn't want to do that. Probably want to go back to there. Actually, One of the things that happens after help is loaded is it runs that post-processing, right? Can post-process header command. Process the header in a newly loaded help file. Parse help headers. I think this might be something interesting. You still need to grab the first line, and it needs to know what the help file is named. No, that didn't help. Let's go back to this thing. Whoops. Is it in that one? Internal help command. The definition is in the core. There it is. I knew it was in there somewhere. Let's close those two for the time being so we don't get too confused. Given the first line of a help file, check to see if it looks like a help source file. And see, this has header prefix. It finds the title, it finds the date, and it returns something. It needs a help. It doesn't really need a help file. So if we looked at this, I'm going to print that. And in order to test this, we need to edit this help file. Every time I push save, we should see it saying that, right? Now, the message is it's already current. Well, you can actually, again, I don't know if I ever pointed this out. No, don't do it that way. I'll do it from the menu here. Although that command triggers every time you save the file, you can also update help file header, and it'll say that help file date header is already current. So match expand. Oh, I guess at some level it needs to do that. Now, it needs to match it because we need to be able to recreate it and just change it. So let's say we don't want to do that here, that call I was just looking at. We do want to pull it out ourselves because we want to leave this title, this line exactly identical, except just that line changes. Which I'm kind of surprised it's not reporting that there's a change there, to be perfectly honest. But that's neither here nor there. So if I decided I wanted this, and this said it was the 30th, it should leave that space there. Let's revert that, which is, that's why it's doing it this way, I'm going to say. So that's probably okay. Next, create help command. This is where we get the package, which is the one that's given, or the current help package for the window, and prompt if there isn't one. If there isn't help for that, say you can't do it. Otherwise, create the file. And oh, that's because you can invoke the hyperhelp author create help command with a package and a file and immediately just go. You can also set prompt to be true when you call this. It defaults to false. If you wanted to create a key binding or a command palette entry or a menu that always prompts you, which is not what these built-in commands do, because I find this way more helpful than that way. Hang on a second. I need to find a nail clipper because I have a terrible hang nail here. There we go. Create file. We get the help index list for the package, the local help file name. Okay, so this only works for help files that already exist. So it gets the package info for the current package, gets what the local file name would be for a file of that type, make any directories that need to exist if they're not already there, Good to know. Create the file. This sets the setting to know that we're authoring it when it's created, so that event handler knows to apply settings. We set the default directory to the path that the file is in, so that when you try to save it, automatically saves there. We set the default file name, apply the appropriate settings, and here's the snippet that's used. So that seems like it's probably cool. Edit help command should be similar. Get the package, get the file. It gets a list of all of the things that it could be doing, which is the name of the file and the oh, the key is the file, and the value is the name of the page. That's why if we say tools, hyperhelp, author, edit, help file. No, he's going to do it that way, is it? Oh, that's neat. If that's how it's going to do, I could just pick it from here, right? Oh, no, it's not in there. Shoot. Oh, tools. Oh, I should stop doing it that way. Do it this way. We get the name of the file and the page title. It's one of the other places that titles are used. Okay. Then if you actually gave it a file, it tries to open the file, and otherwise it waits for you to pick one and then calls that thing that it would have done to open the local help file. So that's probably cool. Create index. That asks you for the document root defaulting to help. When you finish selecting it, it calls create index, which makes the document root, which we're going to see down there in a minute, I would imagine. And then creates with path join. Okay, so that make document root, it's a local path, so that should be okay. And create the two appropriate files. Complain if the index exists or the root file exists, so we don't clobber it. Then try making the appropriate directory if it doesn't already exist. This covers not only things like if you pick a package that already exists and you specify a document root that doesn't exist, it can create it. But also if you try to create help for the default package, it'll create the packages directory default for you so that it can put the document root inside of it, which is why that's make ders. And it's okay if it exists. You don't need to complain. It makes the index, it makes the help file, which we just looked at. It creates a resource and tells packet, oh, we actually manually load it. That's right. I remember this now. There are issues when you create new resource files in a package from within a command. The Sublime has to get out of handling your command and any commands that it invokes and go back to the main loop in order to synchronize with whatever background process is responsible for looking up new package resources, because there's file scans happening in a background thread. Until that rendezvous happens, and it could be any number of seconds afterwards depending on machine load and stuff, resources that you have added Sublime doesn't know about, because when you call Sublime find resource, it doesn't do a scan right there. It's just giving you information that it previously calculated. Slight coffee break. So in that case, until it's managed to update that list because it was told by something else did it, it's not going to report that, which means if you drop it help index and immediately try to reload it, it kicks you in the head because it doesn't know about it. So after we make the help index, we create our own help resource file and load it. The load help index knows that if it tries to load this and it doesn't work, to fall back to actually opening the file manually and loading it that way. And if it gets something, it manually injects it into the list for the current package, which makes it appear to be loaded. As a matter of fact, that doesn't even display a message in the console, which may or may not be a problem, something for us to work on later. And then it tells you this. And one problem that I'm having with this from a visual perspective is are they, it ends up with double slashes there because the document root has um, a slash on it always, I think. The file names are definitely always the same. Okay, join path, doc root, and that, no, because we'd have to use POSIX path or it'll end up the wrong way. I'm going to leave that for now because we need to investigate what doc root does. Does it ensure that it always ends in a slash? As a matter of fact, maybe we could actually do that right now. If I did look for load help index. Pops the value if it's not already there. If there isn't one, then it pulls one from the name of the resource. Huh. I'm not 100% sure that that's actually. Oh, no, that's right. Yeah, it's relative to the package it's stored in, even if it's not the logical package. Yes. So it takes packages slash off. So it splits the Oh, okay. So I think we would need to know. We already have OS, right? So if we said OS path split packages slash user slash help, like so. The first item in that list, is that the one that was looking at there? With packages removed would just be user. Otherwise, it's normalize the containing package and that. So does this? I don't think it does. Okay. So the reason it displays that way, and we're going to go ahead and test that in just a second here. It's everything to do with the document root that's specified. So if I said, whoops, if I did this, and then I said add help to package and picked, we're not going to find, it doesn't have any resources in it. Oh, that's a potential issue. That might not have been the best way to figure that out. The only other way to do that is more unfortunate. Log that as a defect. So if I specify it with help with a slash on it, it says it created them for the package, and notice that it has double slashes there. I'm going to cancel that. And, whoops, that one. I'm going to remove help. Now I think I need to quit and restart Sublime in order to get that to do what I want it to. Now, if I did that again, add help to package, and I picked sample package, and this time I picked help with no slash. Unable to create the document root index file. Okay. So that part definitely needs to make sure that it's on there. That's good to know. Let's start adding notes for stuff that's broken here. This is from the core, right? Yeah. So let's get rid of that. Let's say if we followed this to Create a new empty help system. It's going to come back to the part where it calls create index, which is here. Root path is make document root package doc root. And okay, if the root path was none, it can just, oh, because that would have showed an error, I suppose. How come adding index path to that causes a problem? What error message did we see? Oh, unable to load, resource not found. Because it doesn't have the slash on the end. That's this file. Why doesn't that add appropriate path separators? Isn't that how that's supposed to work? Let's print it and see. Add help to package, sample package, that one. Help already exists. Really? It does? Because I thought it was real angry about that. So let's remove that. Let's quit and restart. It never hurts to quit and restart. So now, if I browse available help, I don't see it in there. And if I said add help to package and picked sample package, error adding, unable to create the document root index file or help file. So the root path was that. The index path was actually correct, but it says unable to load. It's me saying unable to load. So the issue isn't that it can't do it, because if we looked here, it very clearly created the appropriate files. That is the problem right there. Let's go back to here and just verify. If we did POSIX path this, what do we end up with? The appropriate thing. So if I said res equals POSIX path dot join, and what we wanted to join was the packages folder and the package name and the document root and the hyperhelp.json, and did that, and then also came to the top of the file and said import POSIX path thusly, and quit and opened a terminal and went to the packages directory and looked at sample package and removed the help and exited and then restarted Sublime. And you're starting to see why sometimes when I work on this sort of thing, I create a stub type action. Now, if I say, a sandbox type action to stub out the amount of stuff that has to load. Add help to package, and I picked sample package. I'm going to take that off. Error adding help, unable to create the document root index or help file. And the index path is packages, sample package, help, hyperhelp. Global name join is not the. Oh, why must I do that every time? It's not a. It's not that, man. Oh, wow, that's extra wrong. Oh, see, like I just keep doing it. os.path.join. Like that. Okay, now I gotta do that again. And quit and restart. And add help to package, sample package. I keep opening the console, but that's not going to help because it needs to close so that the input panel can open. Why is it mad now? That one. Quit. Terminal. You know, I should just leave this open, right? How many times do I have to do it before it reoccurs to me that I should just leave it open so I could keep coming back and doing that? Not gonna lie, that's been irritating me a little bit as of late too. If you try to interact with the command palette before things fully load, the Subversion package gets really unhappy about it. And it's been a long time since I've used Subversion. I should probably just disable that. Add help to package, sample package. Help without. Initial help files created for. And check that out. That actually looks as one might expect it to look. Huzzah! So we can say open created files, and yeah, that's good. Get rid of that one, and over here in the help, we need to go back one. Okay, so if we're going to do that, then we want to fix the other part of this too, which is this. And we want to say POSIX path dot, go away, pop up, join the doc root and hyperhelp.json. And whoops, that's the wrong one. That one. Boy, I'm really persisting in typing that, aren't I? The other one is index.txt. And then I could remove those. And that seems to work. And we make sure that help is gone. And we quit. And we restart. And if I said add help to package and sample package, and this time I left the slash on, it still looks correct. So great, that's perfect. Now with that in place, let's go back through and make some notes on this and how we think things should be fixed here other than this one. Let's see. There's your template. So that part was cool. I mean, except for, actually we could say this. This should use a template from a file instead. I imagine it would still have to be formatted that way, but at least it would look a little nicer. And we also want to do that here. And maybe there could even be more than one, and you could make your own templates. That's a nice feature. Help header. Let's add one here that says maybe this could be partially done in the core or something. at the very least, can we get the core to be the only place where the regex for this is stored so that this package will always work? Okay, and this should that maybe have a customizable snippet? That seems like something. Maybe there could even be a way where you could have package-based snippets somehow, maybe with extra metadata stored in the index file for use by the authoring tool that would know what resources to use for this sort of thing. Maybe specifying the package resource to use, otherwise it falls back to a default. Then if you're creating topics in a help system where you wanted them to follow a specific format, that would totally work. This should perhaps have a customizable snippet to fill out the help file. I'm not sure. We could specify that it had to have certain fields. That one's probably cool, except that it needs to support files that are packed, because it doesn't currently. Hyperhelp author create index, that's the one we're working on. We don't need that anymore. We don't need that anymore. Do you have any more of those? That part looks a little nicer. And here we go. Norm path. Now, does norm path always remove? Oh yeah. Norm path seems to remove stuff. Now I do still have that other window open. That one. We looked at there. Normalize by collapsing redundant separators and up references. Redundant separators and up level references. How does it know that the slash on the end of a path is actually redundant in that case? I mean, that works, right? But if I did that, how does it know that that's not a directory? What if I did this? Because this might also be interesting. And if we tested it here on our little Windows thing, yeah, continue. Oh, I can't click that here, can I? That's cool. I was curious if that was a horrible security hole. I'll use the mouse behind me to do that. POSIX path. Oh, actually, what if I did this, first of all? It said x is equal to this. That's the path. POSIX path dot norm path x. It doesn't do anything with it. Did we not determine that the whole point of POSIX path Norm path is to swap the path separators. Maybe not. I thought so, though. On Windows, it converts forward slashes to backward slashes. Well, you say that. Maybe POSIX path doesn't because it assumes that the paths are already in that format. I could see that. This is where not being a Python guru really gets in your way. You know, that doesn't like anything either. So that's something to consider for there, I suppose. Uh, say this. Maybe this should ensure that the document root is always in the appropriate path format for POSIX. And if we want to edit an index, it just calls open index from the common code, which is pretty simplistic. Reloading help. Now I think we're getting into actually the meat of something that I know is definitely wrong, and I know I have sort of fixed in at least one place, but not in all of the places. And that is, given a file name, how do we figure out what package it's in? And I don't know exactly where it is in here. And I think we're going to call this stream at 9:30. We're going to go about a half hour short because I do have some stuff that I need to ensure that I'm done tonight. And I spent a lot of late nights this week getting everything ready and, climbing behind monitors and being upset that the height of it is slightly different now than it used to be. That's unfortunate. Um, Somewhere in here, in one of these things, make the file name be relative to the packages folder. Now, I know this command works, which is why I need to investigate this more fully, and maybe the stream isn't the place to do this. But this is that thing I mentioned, well, not this specifically, I don't think, where given a full path spec to a file, we need to be able to reverse lookup to see what package it came from. And previously, it would know that if the resource was packages user help hyperhelp.json or packages user help sample.txt, that because it's in packages user, it must be the user package. But that is no longer actually an accurate assumption because it's possible for one package to have more than one thing. So what it actually needs to do is take the path of the file, which needs to be complete from package all the way up to the end of the document root, and compare it against the document root of all the loaded help indexes, sorted from longest to shortest in case somebody tries to do something crazy like embedding one in the other. And if it finds that path anywhere in there, then it knows that's the package. There's at least one place in HyperHelp Author that's being changed to do that, which was part of me making the change to allow multiple packages to begin with, but I don't think they've all been done. And as a result, some things fail in weird and mysterious ways. Um, so there's your linty stuff. Now, the lint seems to work okay, but again, we really got to comb over this for anything with paths. We have made some changes here, and we have made ourselves more familiar with this. So that's not a bad night's work, considering that I haven't gotten a lot of sleep this week, and I never really planned anything. Knowing how this all works is good. Now, one thing I would also like to do here is split this package up, sort of like the way Override Audit is split up with a commands folder that has one command per and things like that, because it really does make looking at stuff like this a lot easier. I like the idea of having if you just have a couple of commands, put them in one file, that makes it easier. But when there's this many, I found it a lot easier after I finished the BSR on Override Audit to edit commands. And so, with that, I think it is probably time to end this particular stream. Now, this wasn't particularly exciting, but if you're watching this live, remember you have the inside track that sometime tomorrow there's going to be an announcement on the Sublime Text forum where I'm going to tell people that Snappy exists, and there's going to be a video, but not on this channel because this channel is for my live streams. You guys know that because you watch these live streams. So subscribe to this channel if you want to know when I'm doing live streams, which is, unless something terrible happens, every Friday at 8 p.m. PST. And if I get enough response from people wanting a different day or a different time, I'll see if I can accommodate that, at least temporarily. But my day job and family life sort of preclude me from doing anything like this earlier than 8 o'clock at night on Pacific time because I live on the west coast of Canada. Kind of causes a problem for people that are in other parts of the country, but perhaps one or two I could like wake up early or go to bed late or something. We could work that out. But that video that I talked about is going not to be dropping on this channel. It's going to be dropping on my other channel, my OdatNurd channel. Now, I've said this before, but of course, fingers crossed. I have 3 videos in the can right now, one to cover Snappy, one to cover HyperHelp, and one to cover HyperHelp Author as sort of package previews. And I'm planning on dropping one of them a week, which gives me 3 weeks to come up with more videos to have them in the can. And I actually have some recorded stuff for custom build systems and custom exec commands and stuff that I recorded that I recorded it and then the dev build for Sublime broke it and I wasn't sure what to do with it, and then I recorded parts of it to show how it could be fixed by using a relative import in a different non-root package folder. It's a whole complicated thing, which worked. It's more complicated to do, and the Sublime devs reverted the change that broke the original one, so I probably could do something with that, but I think at this point I want to clean that up a little bit. Anyway, the thing is, videos are coming, so subscribe to that other channel if you're not already subscribed. Things are afoot. And that, I think, is going to do it for tonight's slightly shorter than usual live stream. But as I said, exciting things are coming. So, with all of that said and my coffee all but gone, this is OdatNurd performing a salute that you can't see because I don't have a camera, asking you as politely as possible to please have a sublime day.